Yang terhormat, Dekan Fakultas Hukum Universitas Hasanuddin, dalam hal ini diwakili oleh Wakil Dekan Bidang Akademik dan Kemahasiswaan Fakultas Hukum Universitas Hasanuddin, Bapak Profesor Dr. Masgun SH LLM,
The Honorable Dean Faculty of Hasanuddin University, Faculty of Law, Professor Dr. Hamzah Halim, SHMH. In these occasions will be represented by Vice Dean of Academic and Student Affairs, Professor Maskun SH LLM.
yang kami hormati Wakil Dekan Bidang Kemitraan Riset dan Inovasi Fakultas Hukum Universitas Hasanuddin, Ibu Dr. Ratnawati SHMH,
The Honorable Vice Dean of Corporations, Research and Innovations, Faculty of Law, Universitas Hasanuddin, Madam Dr. Ratnawati SHMH.
Yang kami hormati pula pembicara tamu workshop penulisan dan publikasi jurnal internasional, Bapak Dr. Prosper S. Maguju LLM dari Universitas Bridge.
The Honorable Guest Speaker of International Journal of Writing and Publications, Sir Dr. Professor S. Maguju LLM from Freie University.
Yang kami hormati Ketua Departemen, para guru besar, serta para dosen Fakultas Hukum Universitas Hasanuddin.
The Honorable Head of Departments, Head of Study Programs, and also all participants attending this session.
Dan tentunya yang kami banggakan seluruh peserta yang hadir pada workshop kali ini.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Selamat sore dan salam sejahtera bagi kita semua. Shalom, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, salam kebajikan.
Good afternoon, Shalom, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, and good afternoon everyone.
Selamat datang di workshop penulisan dan publikasi jurnal internasional yang dilaksanakan oleh Fakultas Hukum Universitas Hasanuddin.
Welcome to International Journal Writing and Publication Workshop conducted by Faculty of Law, Universitas Hasanuddin.
Hadirin sekalian, pertama-tama marilah kita panjatkan puji dan syukur atas kehadiran Tuhan Yang Maha Esa, karena atas rahmat dan hidayahnya kita dapat berkumpul bersama pada hari ini guna menghadiri workshop penulisan dan publikasi jurnal internasional.
First of all, let us offer praise and gratitude for the presence of God, because of His grace and mercy, so we can gather today in this event to attend the International Journal Writing and Publications Workshop.
Baik hadirin sekalian, mari kita memulai acara ini dengan menyanyikan lagu kebangsaan Indonesia Raya. Hadirin dimohon berdiri.
Let's move to our first agenda, which is singing Indonesia Raya. We humbly please all participants for standing up while the anthem was playing.
dipersilahkan duduk kembali.
All participants can sit down.
Hadirin sekalian, marilah kita mendengarkan sambutan oleh Dekan Fakultas Hukum Universitas Hasanuddin. Dalam hal ini diwakili oleh Wakil Dekan Bidang Akademik dan Kemahasiswaan Fakultas Hukum Universitas Hasanuddin. Kepada Bapak Profesor Dr. Masgun SH LLM dengan hormat, disilakan.
Let's hear the welcoming remarks by the Dean Faculty of Law Universitas Hasanuddin. In these occasions will be represented by First Deans of Academic and Student Affairs, Professor Dr. Masgun SH LLM. Time is yours.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and then good afternoon. First of all, we would like to thanks to Allah and the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam for time we attend this great meeting for all of us. The Honorable Professor Prosper from Frey University, thank you for coming in this university. Actually, I think this is first time you will be in Makassar, right? So that's welcome. And then the Honorable Vice Dean on Partnership, Research and Innovation Affairs, Ibu Dr. Ratnawati SH.MH. The Honorable all the committee, actually particular for the International Cooperation Unit under the Vice Dean 3, Faculty of Law Hasanuddin University, Ibu Dr. Bika, and then all the teams, the Honorable all professors who attend this meeting today, and then all the audiences or the participants for the course of International Reputable Writing in this afternoon. First of all, we would like to welcome to Professor Prosper actually to come in Unhas, and I think this is his first time to be in this Makassar. Even if actually he is really familiar with Indonesia because he do all things, all the academics activities, especially in Jakarta, in University of Indonesia, University of Al-Azhar, and other university in Jakarta. Professor Prosper actually writing reputable, one of the compulsory for the student actually, especially for the postgraduate student, master, and then doctoral degree in this faculty. So one of these their compulsory things that they have to be before finishing this study here, they have to write in the reputable journal. So that's why the position for our activities event for this afternoon is really important for them, and please providing them some tricks actually how they can write an article, both journal all the proceeding, because that's the compulsory, and also not only actually for the student but also for the lectures also in Indonesia, because one of the such kind of the indicator for the lectures in Indonesia, they have to also has some reputable writing that is published by international whatever, both Scopus or the Web of Sciences. This one things that to show how as the academics can be accepted in the international society when they write it down our what we are thinking about it. So that's why I do believe that our event today is really important, not only for the lecture itself, but also for the students, both the undergraduate and then postgraduate student. I think that's good enough to say my greetings for Professor Prosper and all the audience, and I do believe that we can enjoy our events today, our academic events today, and do a lot of some discussion, and then try to absorb a lot of things related to the writing skills and so on, and including the how we develop some idea in the writing. I think this is one of the most important things that we have to do in this afternoon, and then also in the same time we have an expert on it, Professor Prosper. I think by saying Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, on behalf of the Dean, I really apologize actually because the Dean has to be attend this meeting, but in the same times actually the Dean should be in Kendari because there is another also important activity that she has to do in Kendari. By saying Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, I open officially this workshop today. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Baik, terima kasih Prof. Dan pokoknya hadirin sekalian, demikian untuk pembukaan workshop penulisan dan publikasi jurnal internasional. Dan selanjutnya kita akan memasuki agenda utama untuk kegiatan hari ini, yakni pemaparan materi oleh Bapak Dr. Prosper S. Maguju, LLM.
Thank you, sir, for the welcoming remarks and your willingness to open this event. That was the opening ceremony of workshop in international journal writing and publications. Here, we are going to the main agenda of today's activity, which is material presentations by Dr. Prosper S. Maguju, LLM.
Ya, kami persilakan kepada para wakil dekan untuk kembali ke tempat. Dan hadirin sekalian, terima kasih Prof dan Ibu Wakil Dekan 3. Dan tentunya hadirin sekalian, untuk sesi workshop ini akan dipandu oleh Ibu Paradila Jamila, SH LLM, yang merupakan dosen Fakultas Hukum Universitas Hasanuddin.
Thank you so much for all vice deans to attending this opening ceremony now. And the Writing and Publications International Journal will be moderated by Mem Fadila Jamila SHMH as the moderator.
Baik, kepada Ibu Faradila Jamila Esa, LLM, dengan hormat disilakan.
Without any further ado, I call Miss Fadila Jamila to moderate the sessions. Time is yours.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and good afternoon, everyone. Okay. I hope you are all excited as I am for today's session, because today our faculty is receiving a very special lecturer from Frey University, Dr. Prosper Maguju LLM. Before he starts his presentations, let me introduce a little bit about his current professions and also current research. So Dr. Prosper Maguju is currently an associate professor at Frey University, Amsterdam. He's focusing in public international law. Is that correct, sir?
Yes, public international.
Okay. Yeah. He is international coordinator for Anti-Corruption Act in Southern Africa. Previously, Dr. Prosper worked as a senior project lawyer with the Zimbabwe Human Rights Forum, specializing in public interest litigations on behalf of torture and organized violence victims. Dr. Prosper also teaches anti-corruption law, business and human rights as a guest at summer school in universities in Africa and Europe. He holds a master's degree in transnational criminal justice and a doctor on transnational justice, corruption, and human rights. His main research interests are in financial crimes with human rights-based approach. Some of his research that you can found are challenges of money laundering for sovereign states that uses US dollar. Another research is also regarding the role of civil society organizations in asset recovery. And the other one is contesting normative spheres, the status of African traditional courts under international human rights law, and many others. For Professor Dr. Prosper, if you're ready, time is yours.
Yeah, sure.
You will have... Yeah.
One, two, yes. Ooh. 1, 2, yeah. Oh. I think the two microphones are fighting. Now the stability. All right. All right. I don't want to waste too much time, because this writers workshop, the slides that I've prepared usually, 1, 2. 1, 2. That's much better. Okay. Well, thank you, my moderator, for such a warm introduction. And also thank you, everybody, for attending this seminar, despite that today it's a Saturday and it's in the afternoon. And usually this is the time where we do other things. I'm really, really exceptionally pleased to be your coordinator today to facilitate this training on writing skills or writing for academic publication. Now, I think something, all right. That's much better. You can still hear me, right? Okay, all right, I think let's proceed like this. So, anyway, without much ado, I'm going to go straight into the lecture. Usually these slides that I'll present for the next, what do we have, about 1 hour? I usually present them over 5 hours. So I will try to go fast, but at the same time, please feel free at any point if you want me to repeat myself, or if you have any question, or if you need some clarification, just raise your hand or just interrupt me at any time. And I would also want to ask a moderator, do we need sometimes simultaneous translation, or can I just proceed in English? Okay, all right, that's good. So, well, some of the unnecessary parts I'll just rush through. I don't know how many of you have heard about ChatGPT? Yeah? What have you heard about ChatGPT? Who wants to just say something in half a minute? I think, yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. So what I've heard about the ChatGPT recently, it's a automatic writing software bot where you can ask the system on command to write you some essay or lots of writing about certain theme, and you can do it in both English and in Bahasa.
Yes, indeed. You can actually ask it. So remember with Google, we used to say when you want to write about introduction to law, for example, you just put law introduction and it would come up with a number of articles, and it's up to you to then go and search these articles and see which one is relevant or which one is a book, which one is a chapter and all that. With this new chat GPT, you could actually say, can you, okay, tell me about introduction to law, or what is introduction to law? And it will go on and write, like a whole essay for you. But beware, this is not going to replace us as writers or teachers. I tried it already to write an article on anti-corruption. I was really impressed with some of the ideas it gave me, also even highlighting some authors that I thought I've missed. I've never heard about this key. And then when I tried now to look for those authors, they were non-existent. It was just making these things up. So it does make things up, like what other unscrupulous colleagues also sometimes also make things up. But anyway, so this was just a curtain raiser. Now we even have AI, artificial intelligence, that can help us to write, but still the idea, the power to write lies within us. So that's why for the next, as I said, 1 hour, I'm going to help you to together, you and I, because it's also a learning process. Every time I deliver this presentation, I also learn 1 or 2 things. So the next 1 hour, you and I, we are going to go through some of the basic but very useful ideas that we have compiled with my colleagues at Free Invest Amsterdam. We have compiled these 7 steps that we thought are very useful when it comes to writing a journal article. And these 7 steps are specifically designed for colleagues who have never written anything at all. And can I ask in this room, how many of you have never published any article in an international journal? You can show by raise of hands. Don't be embarrassed. How many we have not published in an international journal? You haven't? Yeah. Even in a, yeah. So which means the rest you have published in international journals, right? So in process doesn't count. So I will ask again, How many have an article that we can search now and it's available in an international index journal? Okay. Those who have published in an internationally recognized journal, can you just raise your hand? Indexed article. Now I'm confused.
Ada yang sudah publish jurnal fokus?
Yeah.
Yes.
ASA. Yeah, ASA is good. I published also my book with ASA. You have?
Yang sudah publish. Ya, kita yang menulis kan?
Have you published an article? Oh, nice. Very good. Who else has published? Oh, okay. So I think from the way I see things, not many people have really published international journals here, but we don't want to waste too much time on this. But the point I'm trying to emphasize is that, well, so this course is designed for those who are willing and have the desire to publish in international journals, but they just have an idea, but they haven't published yet. So I'm hoping by the end of this session, you'll be motivated to begin writing and you start contacting me. This is my email address, and we are also going to share the slides. And I'll be happy to review all the articles that will be sent, to help with this publication. Talking of which, our colleagues, we also have this very interesting journal, not very known, called by Dragon. It's also a very strange name. Maybe that's why it's not known. It's actively seeking for articles from Indonesia written by Indonesians. So it issues 4 issues a year. So you have quite a faster process of getting published. I'm just promoting this. There are several other journals. Maybe we can talk about this during our free time. All right. And usually, I know some colleagues have been told about this writing, this equation, IMRAD. How many of you have heard about IMRAD? Yeah, sure. Can you just explain? Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, analysis and discussion. Yeah, the little a also has some meaning. Analysis and discussion. So I've read a number of times, and that was also, so I'm going to share my experience on this slide. And usually we were told that if you want to publish, just follow the IMRAD methodology. You have your introduction, you discuss your methodology, results, analysis, and discussion. And I want to say this makes it a very difficult, for us, especially in humanities and law, to publish. Why so? Because our results, analysis, and discussion usually don't follow this. So in law, sometimes you just want to discuss, for instance, let's discuss about, review the latest criminal code of Indonesia. You want to analyze specific provisions of the criminal code that was passed last month, right? In December, you passed the new criminal code. So if you want to, let's say I have a question, I want to discuss the provision on anti-corruption, you cannot use the IMRAD methodology to discuss that. You don't have results. There are no results. We don't talk of results in law. What we have as a result, for lack of a better word, is the code itself or the provision itself. And usually in this case, we are using doctrinal methodology, which is reading the black letter law. So don't mind this technical, too fancy stuff. And I want to say, and I'll just jump. The method that I want to discuss will work whether you are writing a research proposal, articles, books, blogs. Now blogs are also very popular. I don't know if there's a blog here that is dedicated to the faculty, but they are also becoming popular. In some cases, you can even put them on your CV, but of course not for your websites and tweets. So now to begin this is just a curtain raiser. We'll get to the 7 points, so just be patient. But to get to the 7 points, it is very key that we dispense with a few issues. First of all, I want to ask, why do you think articles are rejected? Who has had an article rejected? Yeah, indeed. So you'll be helping me with switching these slides. Yeah. So one of the reasons why articles are not usually not published is that there is no clear definition of a problem. So you need, first of all, a research question. In order to write, first thing that you need a research question. Let's think of an idea, like we all have our notebooks, we have our pens. Can we just, any volunteers who want to come up with a research question and share with us, then we can analyze it. You have been seconded, say. Yeah? Any research question?
Of my article? In fact, I face some difficulties in publishing my articles. I think this sentences you or answers you wrote, it is think it is very clear to authors or researchers that why their articles are rejected. Because I think one of them, this reasons is famous, no argument, only description. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, okay. Thank you for buttressing. I think there's another end. Yes, thank you. And you don't mind me standing, right? Okay, good. Because then I think better when I'm standing. The same way when you are talking on the phone, you stand up and, you know.
So I'm going to propose my research question. So the background issue, I'm just gonna briefly mention about this. So about the sea level rise and the consequences to Indonesia. So the main question is that I'm proposing is, what are the maritime consequences of sea level rise to Indonesia? So this question will be elaborated into 3 sub-questions. First, what potential conflict will arise due to the changes in maritime zone? Second, to what extent law of the sea can address such issues? The third one is, can you hear me clearly?
Yes.
Which option is the best for Indonesia to maintain its sovereignty and sovereign rights over its maritime zones?
Yeah.
And that's all I got.
Yeah, so exactly. It's not even rocket science. You just have a question. So which for sovereignty?
Oh yeah, it's
Yeah.
about the maritime consequences of sea level rise
Yeah.
to
So
Indonesia.
yeah, and the question is which?
The sub-questions.
The main question.
The main question, what are the maritime consequences of sea level rise to Indonesia?
Yes. Yeah. So what are the consequences? So you are looking at what are the results, and in terms from a legal perspective, right? So we are now thinking of what would be the legal consequences of sea level rise. Can you give like one example? Maybe that's already in your
Border issues.
yeah.
One of the example of the maritime consequences.
Yes, legally. Where Indonesia has a legal obligation, let's say what comes to your mind already is international treaty law, right?
Yes.
Yeah, or customary law or any other law that binds Indonesia with relation to maritime. So this is already, you have your research question and you start now structuring, but we'll get to that. Thank you for providing, for agreeing to volunteer with your research question. Again, remind me that I only have 1 hour, otherwise I'll spend 30 minutes on this. You have also highlighted issues. So one of the main challenges, or among others, there's no research question. People just start writing, but there's no clear definition of what is it exactly that you are writing about. I could have shared a couple of papers that we reject in some of the journals that I'm an editor, but again, we have no time, but I'll share with you also after this session. There's also the issue of argument. You write something that's really descriptive. I've heard people writing on, now something that's also common is about the effect of COVID-19 on legal education, or you want to write about how do you localize human rights, the debate between universalism and relativism. These debates have been debated, since, who was it, Dworkin? Time immemorial, they've been talking about this discussion. There is nothing new that what's your name, ma'am? There's nothing new that you can contribute to this discussion, okay? So don't go for those issues that have already been exhausted. We want something that's novel. So think for something that's not only description. We just see a description, or sometimes you are very good at identifying literature and you don't analyze it. We don't hear your voice, because we need also to hear your voice in an article. Be brave to say, okay, this is what I think, or you can even quote, most authoritative sources, according to the Heartfuller debate, positivism theory, and you can even mention, so this is where I will differ with H.L. Fuller or H.L. Hart. So show your voice, whether it will be accepted or not, as long as it's well argued, that's what is needed by editors. That's what they are looking for. Theoretical context, again, that's also very important. You discuss with the reader, and I'll show you some papers where writing is a conversation that you have with the reader. So make sure that there is that theory, there is also the engagement with the reader. Outdated literature. I know it's difficult sometimes to access latest books, latest journal articles, but it's really a taboo to write an article, a journal article, and you're citing sources that are from 20 years ago, and you are discussing, let's say, about the COVID-19 pandemic, or this criminal code. Okay, we are discussing about this criminal code. Of course, I can forgive you if you can quote some of the original text, but they are looking, so before they even read the paper that you have submitted, they also go to your footnotes, to your bibliography. In fact, some journals, they will ask you to submit your manuscript and then submit separately your bibliography. Before they even look at your manuscript, they look at your bibliography. If they don't find anything relevant concerning the topic that you have suggested that you are writing on, automatic dismissal. You don't get published. So that's also very key. Then instructions. No, that's really common sense, right? You have our author instructions. I don't know how many of you. First thing, before you write, what do you look at? Do you look at the journal, or do you start with writing? How do you do it? Say, before you write, you submit or you write an article, do you start with writing the journal, or you start by identifying the journal or writing the article?
I think I will start with identifying the journal. Yeah.
That's a good one, especially for us who have not yet published so many books. Usually it's better to start by identifying a journal, one that also publishes many issues a year, one that is also has an approach. The journals are very clear. They tell you what their focus is, what their scope is, even what their target is. So emerging scholars, established scholars. So you look for that, and then read author's instructions. If possible, print author's instructions, read them over and over again, highlighting, what is it that is required? Because the moment you submit and you ignore this, then you are done. For example, then there's poor English. No, like, who knows about the distinction between English and American English? English and American English, yeah? What's the distinction? Nothing. Yeah? Yeah? Sure. You are true. Yes. Yes. Use of many things. Yeah. So you see sometimes an article is submitted, it's written in both English, American English, British English, not even to talk about grammatical errors and all the sorts of errors that are full in that article. So that's another thing. We are not native English speakers. We need to thoroughly revise. If possible, ask a colleague who is good enough, or ask a native you have met at international conferences or elsewhere. And then if there's no option, then you can also use editor services. So most journals now also refer you to some editorial assistants where you have to pay, which is something that I'm against, because then you don't learn as an academic if you're in the habit of just paying. My English used to be so terrible, but I was always, working, reading, buying books on academic publishing, buying books also on basic English grammar, and attending courses. And I also would recommend, Vice Dean, if we can also have these kind of books in our library, on how to make a paragraph, how to write, writing in academic terms, writing in formal language and things like that. So these are some of the reasons why we usually don't get published. And I'm sending this to you so that you can also go through and see how you can improve when it comes to writing. Next slide. Thank you. Yeah. Well, this is mostly the first bullet point, usually for those. I don't know how many of you are also involved in editorial. In addition to, who is an editor of a journal? Yeah, okay. Yeah, so I think some of the points, they are for editors. And the second bullet point, writing is about rewriting. So I work on first edition. Usually what I submit is like usually say 8th, 9th edition. So you rewrite and rewrite, you remove a certain paragraph there, you take it in some you remove completely altogether if it doesn't make sense. So it's a process of rewriting, and it's not linear, by the way. That's why I say don't follow too much that IMRAD theory, because it can sometimes mislead you or make it complicated. Writing can be winding. Sometimes as I'm writing the introduction, I already have an idea for a conclusion. So then I can go and already put some notes on the conclusion, or I can discuss some issues. And when I'm done with everything, then I come back and now I write my introduction. I say, okay, so now I know in the introduction, I should state these 1, 2, 3, 4 things. Where do I find them in my article? Then I do the introduction. So it's a process of rewriting and rewriting. Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. So, and again, so your manuscript can stand better chances of being accepted if it speaks to broader issues, there's a clear argument, you know, a storyline. Writing is storytelling. And I'll also, again, try to use some examples that I have, that you are telling a story. So you tell us Indonesia, you know, if you're writing about, let's take an example of maritime that we're given here. I would expect to hear about Indonesia being the biggest archipelago, is it? Yeah. And then you're telling me something that already get my interest, even if I don't even know where Indonesia is. And I'm told that this is the biggest archipelago in the world. Already I have my interest. My eyes are open. I'm now going to listen to you because I think you may have something interesting to tell me about maritime law and consequences of not abiding to international law. So, and then you start taking me process by process, you know, and showing me, you know, until we reach to a logical conclusion about the consequences of, you know, not abiding by the rules or not following the rules. So yeah, this is one point on storytelling. If we now it's like, okay, I can look both sides, but it's also important that I face this side. Next slide. Yeah, this is just a quotation to help us. So easy writing, easy reading is damned hard writing. So one thing that I should also say that writing, yeah, although I'm saying that you should tell a story, it's a lot of hard work. But imagine reading something that's difficult to understand. So if you want to write properly in a way that everybody could understand, you could understand your story, you need, of course, to work very hard. That's why I say it involves rewriting and rewriting. And sometimes also a painful process where after 3 months of writing something, you feel that it doesn't belong and you have to cut it off from your article. It feels like chopping off some parts of your arm, but you have to do it sometimes. It's a painful way, but that's the best way you can, you know, produce better quality article that may be accepted by international journals. Yeah, some more quotes. Everything should be made as simple as possible, but not simpler. Yes, I've emphasized writing being a simple process. So always try to use words that are easily, you know, common words that are used every day. Don't try to impress the editors by borrowing some words that sometimes you don't even know the meaning of. So make it simple, but of course not simpler. The process itself is not simpler, but the writing process should be simple. You should make it in such a way that it's simple for anybody. Try to imagine you are teaching a toddler about maritime law or about customary law or about the criminal code. So write it in such a way that even colleagues from other faculties, from economics, from, you know, even science can understand what you are writing about. And then we go to the next slide. Okay, next slide, I think. Yes, now good. So now we get to the belly of the beast itself. So these are the 7 steps that we find to be very useful for those who have never published to begin writing. So to start from scratch to getting published. First of all, I'll just do a rundown and then we explain them one by one in the next slides. So you need to find a good research question. I see some have good research questions already. And those who are here, we have your notebooks. Yeah, you're taking down. So write some good research questions. If you can think of any, you know, maybe we can do exercise later, time permitting. Divide it into sections. So you already have your research question. I'm really going to use your research question throughout. Yeah. So you have your maritime. Yeah. What are the consequences of sea level rise? Yeah. And then now you think, this is my main question. Of course, you have your introduction. So what is it that I should start with? Yeah. In your case, what would be the next after introduction? Yeah. Okay. So, is this a research paper or it's a journal article? It's a proposal. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh okay. Maybe we can. Yeah, but I'm thinking of a journal article because that can make it clear. So perhaps maybe so we have the first thing after introduction would be probably a definition and discussion of terms. Yeah, because not everybody will understand. Okay, so what does that sea level rising? What is it exactly? So you need also to then straight away start by giving a definition, discussion of terms, and then you go, of course, into the legal aspect of it, maybe with the regulation, governance of, etc., etc. And then you go now to the unique Indonesian context. This is where you discuss. This is, would you expect this would be the main analysis, where you're analyzing Indonesian law vis-a-vis that international framework that you have highlighted. So we have a definition, we have a legal framework, and we now analyze Indonesia's law, whether it's there or it's not there, against the international legal framework. And depending also on the journal that you are publishing with, some journals, maybe it's a journal in Taiwan or so, and you may want to do a comparative analysis, and you look at Taiwanese law, you look at American law, you know, after the brief comparative, then you conclude. So that's a really clear story. Then so somebody can read from the introduction. What is it? Indonesia, a big archipelago, maybe facing some risk of sea level rising. Okay, what is sea level rising? Then you understand what sea level rising. How is it governed by law? Is there anything? So what about it? I have now known about sea level rising in Indonesia. And then you explain to me that, oh, Indonesia, by the way, in so and so signed that it was going to abide by this and so. And then you do the analysis and you then say, okay, in other countries, this is what they are doing. Countries in a similar situation. And then you give your conclusion. That's a clear story that's really, you know, being told in a logical way. So this is one example. So you divide it into sections. Before you even start inputting into those sections, you already have your article. So you have your research question. First task, you divide into sections. You don't put anything, you divide, just divide the sections. You are already halfway towards publication. Then once you have your sections, you have to put in within those sections paragraphs, and we are going to talk about paragraphs. Transitional phrase, I'll talk about them. Good introduction, you know, as I said, a good introduction, and there are certain key 4 or 5 elements that should be found in every introduction. And then structure the sentences. Once you have everything done, now you go through each section, sentence by sentence. Does it really make sense? Does this word belong here? Or should I move it? Do I really know the meaning of this word, or computer just suggests for me? You know, all those things. And then now send to somebody for language, and of course your references. Also very equally important. So do you have credible sources? By the way, we don't plagiarize, right? So I take it as a given that is ethical academics, we cite our sources. So you check your references, you do your language edit. If you are really satisfied, then you submit your article. So now we are going to now go to the steps. But at this point, any questions so far? Let's make this interactive. So any questions on the basic 7 steps?
Thank you. Before coming here, I took a master degree in Palestine. Actually, I surprised the structure of articles here. It is different from in our countries Arabic, because in Arabic articles have different cultures. When I ask or write problem in the article, first I write complete sentence about problem. Then I must write questions under below. Yeah, was first question, 2 question. This question, every question should I write about it one chapter about every question. Yeah.
Again, I think you are talking of, is this a manuscript for a research paper with several questions? Because the other easiest way you can do, for instance, one paragraph, 1 point. If you have sub questions, make sure there's a specific section for each question. So if the question is about the law, you address it in its own section. And even journals, they are very clear about it, by the way. They will tell you that different ideas, please put them even in subsections. Journals go on to the extent of even telling you how they want the subsections, to say put 1.2 or put A, put B. So anything that's not related in a paragraph, to make something easily readable, it should have one idea. Imagine you are trying to read about maritime law, and then in one sentence, in one paragraph, there is Indonesia is a member to the maritime provision. The challenge is that the new parliament is not yet set. And you give us the legal framework, you give us everything in one sentence. It doesn't really make sense. So if you want to discuss about something, take it in another section. There's nothing really wrong about that. But of course, there are some differences within when you are writing for, I'm sure, in different languages. I'm not an expert in Arabic. I wouldn't be sure. So for today, we are going to make an assumption that we are publishing in English journals, right? So this is writing for international English journals. But that's a valid one. Thank you. Yeah. Oh, you have your mic.
So I'm still confused to what extent a question is categorized as good, especially for the PhD candidate, because is it sufficient enough for a PhD question? When I propose this type of question to the prospective professors there, he gave me this kind of a question. Is it sufficient enough for a PhD question?
Okay.
So to what extent is it sufficient enough? What kind of question you are looking for?
Oh, yeah. For PhD, of course, I mean, like one thing I can just say very quickly, of course, I don't want us to major too much into PhD issue, but we should help. The challenge that you make is the question is too broad. Yeah. So for instance, if I look at the issue, that one, what are the consequences of sea level rise in Indonesia? For one, it has to be very specific. What consequences? Social, cultural, legal, what exactly? Hassan Dini consequences or what? So tell me exactly what is it that you want to deal with. It has to be very specific. The challenge is that it's too broad. So you have to make it specific and also novel. So what is it that you're going to talk of that has not been written already on that particular topic? Yeah. So those are some of the issues. So for it's not about sufficiency, but for it to be something that you can really research on, because about PhD, it's something you are going to spend 3 years, 4 years maybe. So you want something that's achievable, and you don't want to search too many bright lights. Like many other students, they face a problem that they make their proposal very broad. So they are touching all these different consequences. You are touching the social, legal, but if you're a law student, of course, you'll be hoping that you touch the legal issues. And then, of course, within those legal issues, you can look about the social consequences of not having a law. But your main objection should be the analysis of the legal framework that's existing, or the lack of a legal framework within Indonesia. So that will be the question. Make it specific, very clear. I think next to you, there's a question, right? Yeah.
Thank you very much. My research question is actually about a form of reconstruction prevention method to counter organized crime within the criminal justice system institution from the criminological perspective. I mean, like, it's a reconstruction. I mean, like, apart from having a strong foundation in the references, how can you know that we could actually continue this study without seems to making this up? Like, I mean, like, there's not much study about this one, and how do you know that you can continue this?
Yeah, that's very true. So sometimes also, well, you check the literature, maybe there isn't much, but check also other things. So what about its relevance? Maybe like somebody says that you want to read something and it's not available, then it's your duty to write about it. Yeah, you think that this is a very important area. Nobody has written, I want to read about this. I can't find a book on anti-money laundering. Then I have to sit down and start writing. So you have to research and write, put extra hours. Structure, as I said, before you even continue with writing process, wasting your time, do you have enough subsections to write a journal article? That's why I said, when you have your research paper, divide it into sections. If you don't come up with 3, 4, 5 sections, then you are done. If you can only come up with 1 or 2, then you are done. You should have at least to show us the introduction, you have your conclusion. What is it? Maybe the discussion of the term. If it's something that is already known, you don't need to discuss it. Delve into the analysis. Is your analysis deep enough to really get into something that people can sit down and read? So put the sections. If you cannot come up with the sections, try again, read again, try again. Maybe read about something related to that. I know now, like the area of cyber law, not sometimes, it's hard sometimes to find material. So look for other comparable areas in law and see if there's any paper that maybe same title with your paper. This is an analysis of prosecution of, let's see, what else? Marital or prosecution of family crimes committed within the family system, and try to replace those words with, economic crimes and something, and see how those papers are structured. So you can also borrow ideas from a paper that is just related to what you want to write about, maybe in a different area, and try to see if it can help motivate you to come up with subsections. So reading very wide can also help. And then that's when you can then determine whether to go ahead or not. Yeah. Yeah, sure.
Okay. So I actually pretty confused because my future article, sorry, the contents is like very. I have many things that I want to talk about, so I intend to separate it into 2 different articles. I mean, like, if there is it possible to write a broad, not really specific questions in the article, but there's not much discussion about that. Like, can we start from the broad one and then we get to the another article and then write the the continuance of that first article? I mean, like, can you do that?
Yeah, so sometimes you could, like, that's what your research interest. Let's say you have an area that you have mastered and you think, I cannot say this in one article. Then, of course, specific focus on one aspect in one article. You don't want to have an article that is talking about different areas. And then what you do is you just scratch the surface and you don't really go deeper in that topic. So you can always, even sometimes as you are writing, you come up across very interesting arguments that we think that, oh, maybe this will make a very interesting article. That's why also I propose in your conclusion, you can even also put in areas of further research. That's when you conclude by saying, okay, so for this and this and that, it's still a developing area, or you can continue with it somewhere, or I'll just touch briefly, or it has been exhausted also, or, these are, you can just introduce it briefly, but don't try to deal with too many aspects in just one article. You are free always to have several. That's why also, even when writing, when you are at an advanced stage level of publishing, you usually don't write one article. You write several articles at a time, because you have sometimes interrelated articles. One is talking about this aspect, the other one on the other aspect, different aspects. So you always have different articles. You keep like a conveyor belt. Others are under review. Others are in the process of being started. Others are coming back for comments, so forth and so on. Yeah. Okay. Yes, say.
Thank you for this opportunity. I have, or I find, Mr. Prosperity, maybe
Thank you.
attending your explanation in our workshop, article writing, how to make article or manuscript which is the best, so that the manuscript will be published in reputable international journals. it is very, very attractive. Attending your explanation how to be successful or to have success to make manuscript or article to be published in international journals with high reputation or with high repute, I am sorry, I am not going to attach this problem, how to do, how to produce the article which is the best to be published in reputable international journals. But I want to say that as we know that there is a lot of international journals qualified as the reputable international journals. Most of the reputable international journals are produced by the universities, public or private universities existing in United States and European states. Even though in many states in Asia, including in Indonesia, there has also been some international journals which are qualified as reputable international journals, including our university, especially Faculty of Law, has already international journals with high repute, which is called Hasanuddin Law Review and the initiator or the editor here is Mr. Ahsan Yunus in Hasanuddin Law Review. Nevertheless, most of the reputable international journals I could repeat again, come from universities existing in the states, in US and European states. Besides that, there is a general perception. There is any perception in general in many states, including in our country, in Indonesia, that the reputable international journals are qualified as the international journals indexed in Simago reputation, or in briefly, we say indexed in Scopus, so that we mention Scopus Journal, and HALREP is also categorized as Scopus Journal. I want to know, how about your opinion? Do you agree with the general perception where the international reputable journal are identified as Scopus journals? That's one. Then why the general perception could occur, or how to say, could happen, and applicable in many states, including Indonesian country. How about your opinion? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you also very much for the warm, kind words about prosperity. I feel prosperous already. But so first one, I do have a strong opinion about the, best index, Scopus. To me, Scopus is very important. Yeah, don't get me wrong. It's one of the important indexes, but not the only one. Yeah, that it may be widely used now is also a good thing, but there are also other indexes, by the way. So when seeking to publish with journals, don't just look for Scopus, look also for other indexes that are recognized elsewhere. They all count equally sometimes. Yeah, of course, sometimes impact factor, you look at all those things. And look for a specialized journal in your field, by the way. Yeah, so one way, maybe we don't have enough time to discuss how do you find a journal in your field. You know, criminology, maritime law, transitional justice, cyber law, family law. Look for a specialized journal in your field. That makes much more sense than just rather going for Scopus. No, look for other indexes. And most journals in Europe, elsewhere, they also have multiple indexes. So they don't only have Scopus, but they seem to be that Scopus has conquered Indonesian minds. I don't know why, yeah, but I think something that needs to be demystified, that, there are other indexes that are equally important. And now talking of the international setup, yeah, indeed, journals may be based in the United States, in the global West. Yeah, they have the finances, they have financial power. They've also have these universities for many years, some of them even 1,000 years, others in their hundreds. So they are established. The culture of writing is established. The editors are also there. Then one thing that about international journals, if you check, even to get that Scopus that is worshipped here, they want to see if your editorial board is international. So they have to have an international board. Indonesians are required on the board, but you are not writing enough to be regarded as an editor. So write enough, then you can also sit on those boards.
We have to make sure that diversity of editors.
Diversity of editors. I'm also editing 2 journals here. I'm editing the Journal of the Supreme Court. I'm editing the Journal of the Financial Intelligence Unit. I refused a few others because the obligations would be too overwhelming. I edit elsewhere in Africa, also in the United States, in India. So diversity is key. If you don't have diversity board, then it ceases to be international journals. So international journals are exactly what they are, international. They may be housed at which university you can think of, John Hopkins University, for example. They have the famous Human Rights Quarterly. It's also regarded as the top journal in human rights law. If you have published in the Human Rights Quarterly, you have arrived. But that journal publishes open right now the latest issue of the Human Rights Quarterly. Articles are from everywhere. you see Chinese names, you see Indonesian names, you see Zimbabwean names, everybody's. So it's international. So those are my opinion. But yeah, let's not worship too much this one specific category. Let's also be very impartial when we look at this. I know, yeah, it's very important, but if the requirement to be a professor requires you to be Scopus Index, there are many of them. And many international journals, by the way, have multiple indexes. So don't worry too much about that. But we need now to come back to this. Any burning question on this slide? Then otherwise we go. Okay, next slide. So finding a research question. So I'm just going to share some ideas based on experience. You can also, maybe if you have others, we are welcome to share others. A research question, sometimes that's the first thing you need. You need to have a research question. There are different ways you can come up with a research question, right? One of which I find very interesting is just a paradox. And I like to use this, a contradiction. One interesting one would be like Indonesia. Indonesia is a very big country, right? How many is number what in the world? 5? In terms of population? 4. Yeah. So it's the 4th largest country in the world. Were you represented at the Football World Cup? Yes, not yet. Okay, keep dreaming. Oh, but I'm kidding. Maybe next time. But the point I'm trying to make is, look, with the 4th largest population in the world, how come you cannot find 11 best players? Because you have all these people. They should at least, you should have among the best top teams, right? Yeah, so it's a paradox. You try to understand the same approach. Try to think of it when you are reading that, oh, why is this not making enough sense here? Now I'm going to write about it. So that's how you can think about it. So you say, oh, there's a big country. Logically, it should be that they have this largest population, then they should have the largest number of sports people, which means their team should be unbeatable. But that's a paradox. That's one way you can also think of a research question. Sometimes research questions comes from reading other articles. So you need to read. As an upcoming, those who have not published anything, think of an iconic article. My journey, personal story, true story. I started writing because I read this. I was at the time very focused. She introduced me as I was representing victims of organized violence and torture. I was dealing with this field of human rights law called transitional justice. And transitional justice is a specific journal called the Journal of International Transitional Justice, I think ICTJ, or International Journal of Transitional Justice, IJTR. Yeah. In 2008, they published a special edition because I was also interested in corruption issues and human rights issues. They published a special edition that was on transitional justice and socioeconomic crime. And I read that journal. From the preview to the last article, everything was just eye-opening. Any sentence that I was reading in that journal was just giving me the appetite to read, to write about it, because all the articles were from different authors, very skilled writers. Yeah, but there was nothing on my country, for example. They were talking about transitional justice, socioeconomic rights. I said, I'm going to write about this using Zimbabwe as an example because nobody has talked about it. And every time, even now, many years later, whenever I'm struggling to think of an idea, I go back to my 2008 edition of Transitional Justice Special Journal just to read it, to get some inspiration. So find what I call an iconic article in your field of environmental law, in your field of, what's your specialty? International human rights law, in human rights law, international law again, yeah? Criminology, in cyber law, find an iconic article, an article that you think is well written, and use it as that article that you always refer to, even when you are having this writer's block. You know what's a writer's block? It seems your mind cannot think anymore. Just go back to your iconic article. That should be your first point. That helps you to come up with an idea and start writing. And yeah, we talked about having your question, and sometimes then you need to have some sub-questions. So they should also seem to follow the first question. And I will explain why this is important at a later stage, and I hope we can do some assignment. So let's skip this one. Okay, just quickly. So a research question is not the same as a topic, by the way. So, and usually even a research question, sometimes we don't even want to see it in the paper. So don't write if you are writing a journal article, unless if you are writing a thesis, by the way, a proposal. You don't have to say, this is going to be my research question. Or no, it's a boring article. Just answer it you have it somewhere, the back of your mind. But when you write to us, we want you to explain a logical story. We don't want to hear this is the research question and all that, how you come about it with the sub-research question. Those are boring sub-paragraphs. And I'm going to show you other boring, equally boring sub-paragraph. That's why editors usually turn down offers, papers within a week or two, a month of submission. So a topic, we can have another discussion on how just to come up with a topic. And so far, some topics that have been shared, for example, like your topic, good research, but topic very long. Yeah. So you need also, journals can tell you that a topic should not even exceed 12 words. So you should try to make it very short, maybe in 2 parts, and that's it. It usually helps to who, what, when to use that equation when you are writing a topic. But the research question is, what do you want to know about this topic? The consequences of not abiding by international law governing maritime. So that's what I want people to know. But the topic is not going to be like exactly those words. You have a different topic. You can study a topic your whole life, but you can answer a research question only once. Yeah. So the research question should be one thing. Yeah, the topic can be changed. You can even sometimes change and put Indonesia. Maybe you visit Amsterdam one of these days. You come back with an idea. Same, you have a different question, but you just put Amsterdam where previous time you have put Indonesia. Yeah, choose a topic that you find interesting, but think of a research question that interests others. So that's another very clear distinction between topic and research question. So for a topic, it's something that you find interesting yourself. So you say, at least I'm very happy with this topic. I like topics sometimes. I used to like Latinism. So my topic would come like, if you read some articles I have published with the UI journal, Investors Indonesia, they always have this Latin term, borders and boundaries, sometimes borders and boundaries, importing asset recovery, duty-free into the transitional justice agenda. I put such fancy terms and there it's liked. I presented this at Oxford. Out of more than 100 and something papers, I was in the top 3 because of the sketchy ones. The last one was who's guarding the guard, civil society and asset recovery. So something that interests you can be your topic, but your research question should be what is going to interest others. So think of what will interest others. And I was thinking, would others be interested on how to deal with asset recovery after transitional justice? You deal with a despot leader. How then do you deal with the issue of assets that were stolen? That should interest other countries. Indonesia could be an example after post-Suharto, or Nigeria after Sani Abacha, Zaire after Mobutu Sese Seko. Think what is it that would be of interest to other academics, policymakers, whoever you are writing for. So that's another clear distinction. Next slide, unless there are questions. And again, please remember, you can interrupt me anytime, okay? If there's anything you want me to emphasize on, you can also share your own example if you have anything. Yeah. So these are just some some topic, solid waste management in Surabaya, I hope I pronounce it. So you can just, these are just some research question. So the topic would be like solid, and then the question would be, can it be useful in the future despite negative stigma? I know this is negative stigma, unless it has changed. But so, just some examples that we could randomly think of. And again, we'll share the slides. And hopefully you can try to think of your topic now. Think of your research question that you have shared and see how the distinction between what interests you, and how to distinguish a topic from a research question. Next slide. Yeah, it's okay. Next slide. I've already talked about this one. Yeah. Let's go to division of a text into sections. Yeah. So you can decide however you like, however you want, depending on your literature that you have reviewed and depending also on the way you want to tell the story. I said writing in a journal article is telling a story. So I leave mostly, this part mostly to your discretion. But what I can give you as a word of advice is that avoid certain kind of sections, certain subsections like literature review when writing a journal article. For a proposal for PhD, that's good. We need to see the literature review. But if you're going to try to publish in an international journal and you say literature review, that's already a boring one because, nobody wants to cares about that. You need your literature review in there. You review your literature, but you have a section where you just have literature review. Background. Also, again, that's another thing that has been used by sometimes first-time authors. That's also what editors find boring. Historical, no, just give us, okay, what is it? The current extant law, existing legal framework. Then you can always start perhaps maybe by a statement like, in order to understand the current framework, it is prudent to discuss, maybe the previous framework. And then you just give us in 1-2, sentences, your paragraphs, maybe restrict it to a few paragraphs. Because whenever you think that you have enough to write a historical background on, that means that topic has been exhausted before. So if you see yourself summarizing 2 pages, 3 pages of historical review, it is already an exhausted area. We just need a little bit. Give us in the footnotes references, but don't write a historical background or geographic background. That's not necessary. We need that analysis. Remember again the first slide. Why do we get rejected? Because we are just simply being repetitive. There's nothing. You don't find your own voice in a geographical background. It's just facts. You're just simply stating facts. We need an analysis. And sections should ideally speak to each other. So they should follow a certain way, they should be connected. What I call, there should be a golden thread that connects the section from the introduction until you get to your conclusion. And I'll show you also in the next few slides how that is possible, that you should write in a way. Imagine you are trying to direct somebody. Let's take this example. You are trying to direct me how to get to Hassan Dini from the airport. You don't start by telling me that I'll get to this junction, or after the airport, I'll get to the junction and then I should get it. You tell me from the airport, giving me ideally, how do I get into the highway? Or if it's overcrowded, how do I avoid it and get to another point and get to that new real estate that is being built there? How do I get until I arrive? So it's logical. You follow logic. So in the similar way, when writing, your sections should also follow each other. So there should be a logical way that even if you read just the first sentence of each paragraph, it should make sense, should be connected to the first sentence of the second paragraph. You should, make that logical way of writing. That's what I call the golden thread that connects each section. Okay, similar with paragraphs. Let's go to the next slide. Any questions? Yeah, sure.
Like explaining why
Very good. What I say is we don't want to see a subsection written background. Yeah. So what you need to do is delve into, give us in a way, but don't say this is, you put a subsection entirely on background. The point, I want you to connect this to that point that you need to analyze. Many papers don't get published because they are simply repetition. So if your background, for example, influences something, we can have it, minimize it. Because the moment you see yourself writing, most journal articles will tell you we want 6,000 words or 11 or 8,000 words maximum. If you see yourself now writing a background that is taking already 1,000 words, you are out of topic. Yeah, you are simply restating what has been said before. So these sections like background, if you have a background, put it as a sub-paragraph, put it as a paragraph, 2 paragraphs, as I said, at most. You can always bring at the extent, the issue that you are highlighting. That's what we want to see. And then maybe in the second paragraph, say, in order to understand this issue, we need also maybe to understand, this is just an example, we need to understand this background. Then in maybe 1-2 paragraphs, you give us this background. It's very important, by the way, to have a background, but not an entire section on background. because that's an issue that has already been discussed. It's a key indication. One of the key indications that you are writing on something well discussed is when you find too much background information. Yeah. Yes.
So it is key to when we write like a trigger when before we jump to the like concept or context that coming from our leaders.
Yes, exactly. That's okay. Yeah, but it should be connected. So you should connect this paragraph, but don't discuss things that have already been exhausted. Yeah. Okay. Is this the one that I want? Okay, I'm not sure. Can you go backwards? I'm not sure where I was before. Yeah. Yes. So that's good. Oh my goodness. All right. Good thing is actually we have this is a very good slide to spend some time on. As I said, that this topic, usually we need a day to do this because there are some activities, some exercises that I was hoping we'll do together. But let me say that, okay, so the structure of a good article, yeah, you're talking about structure and background. So usually this is what I do. What we do, you have your title, right? You have your keywords. Sometimes journals ask also for an abstract. So they say, I mean, keywords. They say, give us 10 or so maximum of keywords. You have your introduction, and there are specific ways of writing introductions. In some journals, they can also give you some pointers on what they expect in the introduction. Then avoid that equation called IMRAD. Go for just say body of argument. And there you can have, usually, because it's important to bring forth your main argument. So if your main argument is that Indonesia does not have a strong legal framework to govern maritime activities, then we want to see that as the topic section. And within that topic section, for example, then you can introduce the background. Or it's also up to you as a scholar to say, because by the way, when you have your introduction, one of the last sentence in an paragraph in an introduction is an overview of this paper. So this whole overview, we want to see it in the introduction. So in the introduction, in the final paragraph, you can tell us that, so this chapter, this section, or this article will proceed as follows. It will have a brief introduction. Always remember, a brief introduction. I will highlight, but use those specific academic phrases that will show that you are not going to bore us with what we already know. Editors of these specialized journals, they have many years in that area where you are trying to educate them. So just tell them in that last paragraph, I will give an overview of introduction, and then I will go into the legal framework and so on and so forth. So you give us in this last paragraph in your introduction, your body, you have your current issue. You can also discuss your methodology if you do have one. Sometimes, for example, when I give an example of the criminal code, so you're analyzing the criminal code. If you're analyzing the criminal code, it's quite common sense sometimes, but anyway, what may be common sense to you as the writer may not be common to the reader, but it's usually doctrinal methodology, right? So you're looking at the black letter law. Maybe you want to see, or maybe sometimes you may also look at other, you have some other questions, empirical questions that you want to ask, but you can also give us this methodology depending with the journal and your writing skill. Sometimes I also bring this into the introduction because I believe methodology usually belongs to the introduction. Background information and context, you can also put it somewhere. So your background, context, your findings, if there are findings, or then you just go to your analysis if there are, but your findings are not also very difficult, by the way. Let's not make it complicated. You can, a statement that if you think that within the existing framework, Indonesia may not be going anywhere if it doesn't have laws that will govern maritime law. These are your findings. And then now you go to the analysis where you are free to even incorporate some international comparative, this is the writing style. So this is in a way, the way you structure, you have your conclusion and you have your references. And there are also specific rules for writing a conclusion in this. I have still, which is slide number what? So there are still more slides to go, but okay, it's okay. Yeah. Number 19. So yeah, we were almost halfway. Okay, next slide, and then maybe, but yeah, so these are slides that would it require a little bit more time, but yeah, so this is your introduction, how to write it, what is the problem, what is the issue you want to discuss, how can the problem be solved? Can it be solved by passing the law? Then you discuss the law. Can it be solved by just simply implementing the law or an interpretation of the law? You know, whatever that you want to discuss in the materials and methods and your results, what you found, your discussion, some further discussion before you get your conclusion. But I think, let's see what's next. I'm trying to, yeah, let me just go very fast with some of this. If you just give me extra 5 more minutes, then I'll sit down and shut up. So with paragraphs, they are like building blocks. When you are writing a paragraph, each paragraph should deal with only one topic. So one topic in one paragraph, and then you have what is called a topic sentence. So the topic sentence is the most important sentence in the paragraph. So this is where you state what is important. The next can be examples, it can be other supporting details. That's why I said, if you now in one section, if you read just the first sentence, it should connect easily with the first sentence of the second paragraph. So it should make a story can be read even without going into the main paragraph, because the rest are just supporting details. So there's that topic sentence, and it's an elaboration of a topic, and then you start rewriting sentences, you put your examples and so forth. Next, so yeah, you can divide into smaller. Okay, no, let's skip this one. Let's go to another point. You can read this on your own. I want you to go to step 4. Good. Yeah, transitional phrases. So once you have your paragraphs, now you need your transitional phrases. When you are writing paragraphs, just write, don't worry about grammar. And then of course, now for it to make sense, within those paragraphs, I said you have your topic sentence, maybe you have your intro, you have your examples, maybe you also have another point that is explaining the topic sentence. But now you need to connect within that paragraph, these sentences. So that's where we want to see those transitional phrases like, nonetheless, however, things like that. For instance, and again, avoid using informal language. Like I've seen in some academic journals, people using words like, although, you don't use although when you're writing for an international journal. You put academic phrases. So now what's important is to know academic phrases to use, or transitional phrases that you use in between the sentence in a paragraph. It's not very difficult, by the way. Nowadays, you can find online, you can download academic phrase books or phrase bank, which can show you how to write in how to connect sentences when writing an introduction or when analyzing the results. This is now no longer rocket science, and it's not plagiarism if you use transitional phrases like firstly, secondly, thirdly, when you are discussing related points. That every writer can use that. It's not plagiarism. Or if you use nonetheless, or let's think, in despite of, anything you can think of. So that's also very important. And that's also what distinguishes writers from non-writers. If you just look at the way they connect ideas, you can tell who is a good writer or somebody who is well-read from somebody who isn't. Okay, fine, next. After transitional phrases, then, yeah, I think step 5. So what we need to see in an introduction, the reader step by step to the, it should be like signposts. As I said, signposts that you find in the street. They should show us step by step what we are going to find in the article. A little bit of the main question, a little bit of the background, methodology, and then you also end by giving us purpose, and then you end by giving us an overview. So this article will proceed as follows, or this article is divided into 5 sections. The first section is a brief intro or discussion of the term. If you think the term is difficult, like let's say you are talking about corruption, which is not easily defined, you may want to define it according to the way you want to write, things like that. Give enough information to also get people interested. In your introduction, tell us like, okay, there is lack of law governing so and so and so, and this article aims to maybe come up with a framework, or something that we look forward to. Research question, so yeah, debate, yeah, you can also revisit a debate, or you can say, oh, so there is this debate on whether human rights should be contextualized or should be universal. This question has already been asked. Oh, this article asks this question anew within the context of the new criminal code that was passed by the Parliament of Indonesia on so-and-so date. So show us that although it's something that is probably have been discussed, but we have raised our appetite to read your paper by telling us that, you are now using this very new approach. Promise of what will be added to current state of knowledge. Like I believe, let's say, I believe this article is going to open doors to further original ideas, or this article is going to guide us towards areas that needs future research, something like that. Was that a hand up? Say at the back. Were you raising your hand? Ah, okay. All right. Yeah, and step 6. Okay, before that, I think that's important. Yeah. So again, like when writing an introduction, sometimes you have two choices. You can start like a funnel. You give like an introduction, so a background. If you have a problem, so what is the general issue? The challenge that can be associated with the question that you have raised at a global level. Before maybe you are writing on Indonesia, but you can start by telling us that maybe the world over, maritime or sea rising is like a global challenge. Indonesia is no special exception, and so forth and so forth and so on. And now you start getting narrower, getting us to the actual problem. But you started by giving us a real global perspective, showing us, the significance of the topic. That's also very key when you are writing an introduction. You can also begin like me. I go straight to the issue. I don't give a general. I start by saying, Indonesia is in trouble. It doesn't have maritime law or laws that govern maritime. And this is not so forth and so. And then I start now, narrowing down. But usually I'm my introductions are very, very small. I just go straight to the issue. Don't want to waste time. But it's up to you. Choose any method you want. Let's go to the next slide. Also, that was just an example you can read on your own. Step 6, structuring the text at the level of the sentence. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So sentences, make them very, very small. I've seen sentences that are whole paragraph, one sentence. That's a sign of bad writing. Make sure you keep them short. So you have your sentence, you keep it short, avoid, that language that's too much verbose. Therefore, however, you put in quotation and you just say and you just give us exactly what is it that you want to state without putting too much, I call them thought clearing phrases. Like when we are speaking, it's fine. It's fine to, and then you give us some more. But when you are writing, you don't want throat clearing phrases. We want you to go straight to the point, especially you want to publish in certain journals. I can tell you, German editors don't like that because their language. With our languages, there's some differences. When we are writing as Indonesians, we also think like Indonesians, even when we are writing in English. It may make sense in Bahasa, but when you now translate it into English, it is already too verbose. Some languages, English is also one of them, they just go from point A to point B. You don't have this beautiful language that make language interesting, saying many things. So also try to keep that at the back of your mind that you are writing for an international audience. Yeah. Avoid passive sentences, like the code was written, the criminal code was written by, just say, Indonesian parliament passed the criminal code on 22 December 2003. Yeah. No, not the other way around, like we are focusing on the code was written and passed. No. So avoid passive sentences. They are difficult to read because we don't really know exactly now whether we are talking about the code or about the parliament. So just make it easier for the reader. One clause per sentence, that's more grammatical issues. And also another thing, when writing, don't say this, that. If you're saying the parliament, I'd rather you keep repeating the parliament of Indonesia needs to do this. The parliament did not do this. Don't say it, they, or those, or that. We don't really know what that is. That makes also a little bit confusing, And yeah, one term, one concept. For example, if you decide to use parliament, use parliament. If you decide to use the legislature, use the legislature. If you decide to say the lawmaker, use the lawmaker throughout your don't change always lawmaker, the legislature, parliament. So then we might think, oh, maybe there's a specific regional parliament, or is it the same lawmaker? Just try to also make it easier for the reader when structuring the text at the level of the sentence, of each sentence. And finally, step 7, So we will, yeah, some exercises. So these are just some general tips that can help you in writing. You know, you need to focus on your spelling. You know, I've told you, we talked about American English, American and UK English, for example. You know, you need to know what are the distinctions. So where if you decide to use the Z, then you are now going American, then stick to American, whether you're talking about center, favor, you know, all the other ways you can find easily nowadays on internet how to have a phrase bank also that's showing you which one is American, which one is English. So spelling mistakes are annoying. Like once you just see a spelling mistake in the abstract, the paper is already rejected because it's too much work for the editors. They are not supposed to be doing spell check for you. Yeah. Or do also spell check on your own before you submit your words. You know, there's just some fast ways to do spell check. Dictionaries, yeah, phrases in Google sometimes, especially, yeah, I don't Google, yeah, but nowadays you can actually find specific phrase banks. You can buy, sometimes they are not very expensive. A thick book with all the phrases that you want, you can use when you are writing an article. Text that you read. So if you read an author you like very much, you can also see their style. How do they talk about certain areas? So try also to borrow from other authors. And you can also make a useful, I started doing this exactly, even when I'm just writing and I find a very interesting way of saying something about my field, I'll just write it somewhere. Maybe in future when I'm writing, then I can always refer to that and always use a native speaker. So writing is really polishing your stuff. You can publish or, you know, your paper can be reviewed inside the library. So you need to read, spend more time, you know, work on, but writing is not rocket science. We can all write, we can all publish. And with this, I would like to thank you for your attentive listening, interaction, and also for giving me extra time to finish. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Prosper, for the very interactive presentations. Please, everyone, give one big round of applause. Okay. Initially, we would like to conduct the discussion session at the end of this workshop. However, we already seen that we have a very engaging and interactive discussions. So as Dr. Prosper already said, he will share the materials after the session so we can look at it back. And also there will be a video that will be uploaded regarding these sessions. So that's all, and that will conclude our workshop for today. Thank you very much, Dr. Prosper. I think it's very amazing and very insightful. Hopefully after the sessions, all of us, both the lecturer and the students, will be able to write better and prepare to publish. So next time Dr. Prosper come to Unhas, everybody, when he asks, everyone will raise their hand when Dr. Prosper asks who have published in international reputable journals. So initially there is very lack of people who have published, but next time, inshallah, it will be so much better. Thank you very much, and assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you so much. Yeah, next time everybody will raise their hand. And you will raise your hand too. Okay.
Baik hadirin sekalian, tentunya sekali lagi kita beri aplaus untuk narasumber kita yang sangat luar biasa pada sore hari ini. Dan selanjutnya sebagai bentuk apresiasi kepada narasumber kita, maka selanjutnya penyerahan piagam penghargaan tentunya yang akan diberikan oleh Wakil Dekan 1 bidang Akademik dan Kemahasiswaan Fakultas Hukum Universitas Hasanuddin, Bapak Profesor Dr. Maskun Esa LLM. Dan tentunya juga nanti didampingi oleh Ibu Wakil Dekan 3, Ibu Dr. Ratnawati SHMH.
Before we come to the end of the sessions, we would like to give token of appreciation to our amazing speaker, Dr. Prosper S. Maguchu, that will be represented by Vice Dean of Academic and Student Affairs, Professor Dr. Maskun SH LLM, alongside with Vice Dean in Cooperations and also Innovations, Madam Dr. Ratnawati SHMH.
Baik, dan dilanjutkan dengan foto bersama. Ya, dan tentunya hadirin sekalian setelah ini para pimpinan mohon tetap di tempat dan dilanjutkan dengan foto bersama mengundang para guru besar, para dosen, ketua departemen, dan para peserta workshop untuk mengambil tempat di depan, dipersilakan.
And we humbly please to all participants to come forward for documentations purposes. We also invite speaker, lecturer, and all the audience to be involved in our photo sessions.
Hadirin sekalian, demikianlah seluruh rangkaian acara workshop penulisan dan publikasi jurnal internasional oleh Bapak Dr. Prosper S. Magucu, LLM. Sekali lagi kami mengucapkan terima kasih atas kehadirannya dan juga seluruh partisipasi peserta workshop. Akhir kata, wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Now we are at the end of the workshop. We would like to thank all the participants who have attended these afternoon sessions. Moreover, we do apologize if there are any intentional or unintentional wrongdoings during this activity. We sincerely hope that what we got today can be useful for our future.
Terakhir bebas, 1, 2, 3.